Deconverted Man here. What does cognitive dissonance feel like in your brain? It doesn't feel good. I can tell you that. I have to learn my biggest things by blundering my biggest, it seems. And I hope that this isn't my pattern, but at any rate, I learn more, or I learn a lot, at any rate, when I make a blunder. And when I make a blunder, it's a colossal one, at least in my view. I wanted to talk about this kid and his clock thing and all this, and I came into it so sure that he had a malicious intent. And then the more I learned about the story, the more sure I became that this had to be the answer. Come on, what other answer could there be? And this was just speculation, so it's okay for me to say that this is a possibility. I was listening to other people talk about it, and I was thinking about what a lot of my YouTube subscribers had said, and I realized I was getting awfully emotional about something that I shouldn't care about. I started lashing out with words and projecting onto them feelings of my own, and I got into this weird loop in my head where it was like, oh, I can't believe that they don't agree with me. I have to make them agree. And I went to sleep, and I rested and ate, and I took my depression medicine and all that. And I was thinking about it, and I realized, wait a minute. These feelings, this endless looping, this determination I have that this is the story is not skeptical thinking. What is it? And I had to analyze and step out of myself, and it was very hard to challenge this, which gave me a clue that this was something that I believed. It was wrapped up, entwined with my own emotion. This was important to be true. Why? And I thought about that idea some more, and I realized I might never really know what it is about this story that triggered some sort of emotional connection to it. And maybe it's not relevant that I ever figure that out. Maybe a psychologist could pull it out of me one day, I don't know. But deducing or figuring out what somebody's motive is, I've always said that you can't use logic for that. And I missed the big boat on this story. I missed the core because I was so caught up in thinking I was right, in believing that I was right, in knowing that I was right. When the fact of the matter is, I have no idea. I don't know his motives. I don't know, nobody can know his motives except for him. And if his father was involved or whatever, well, then they would be the only people that actually knew. And unless they admit it, or unless we discover some sort of plans or what have you, then there would be no way to say, oh, well, it's malicious. Of course it's malicious. No, we can't say that. We presume innocence until guilt is proven, so we presume that this was benign. We presume that he had no ill intent. I still don't think it should have become this giant politically correct sort of backwards thing, in the sense that, well, he got unfairly punished and now we're going to super ultra mega reward him. I think that that's going too far the other way, but whatever, I mean, I think it's almost kind of a reverse racism, like, oh, we're going to use this and say, look, we've given you these scholarships and you got to talk to the president and all this, and that's to make it look like we are really, really sorry that we did this. Even if it's not profiling, we're just going to make sure that everyone knows that we're okay with the normal, everyday, run-of-the-mill Muslim. But maybe there's a point to that. Disagree with it, though I might. In that we want to have better relations with the ones that aren't crazy, wacko, nutsoid. So there might be a good reason to turn this into a politically correct sort of story. Maybe. But all that aside, somewhere I got lost in my own mind with this emotional entrapment of believing, no, I have to be right. I'm going to stand by what I've said. Yeah, okay, I'll agree. I screwed up on the size of the thing. All right, but so what? It's still, look at all this. It just adds up to something bigger, and that sounds an awful lot like a conspiracy theory, which is exactly what it was. And I hate conspiracy theories. Listen to good old Steve Shines talking about this via a YouTuber who was talking about it, and he's talking about this is that the basically anti-American sort of pro, like, oh, this is horrible that we did this, yada yada, all these sort of just insanely politically correct to the maximum degree sort of message that really doesn't bring up that there is a problem with this religion, that it is causing a great deal number of people to do some really bad, horrendous things, or maybe these people are just using the religion to justify those things, but whichever way it is, it's still bad, and to ignore that while you're talking about the other is it's just not, it doesn't feel right. But I realize it's like, well, in a way, if I keep up with this idea that he had a malicious intent, that makes me almost on the same side of Steve Shines there, but in a different way. It's like I sound exactly like him. I'm saying stuff that doesn't make sense. Oh, well, now I know I'm wrong. But how did that happen? What could I have done to prevent myself from falling prey to something that I was over? I thought I was over believing in wacky stuff and nonsense, but there was something about this that hit me emotionally, and that because of that, once I allowed my emotion to creep into what I thought about this, the two became intertwined, and it was very difficult, if not impossible, to challenge it. And it felt bad to challenge it. It caused me all sorts of stress, and I was lashing out with words at people, and I was just saying things that just didn't make any sense, both verbally and in text. And I think I've heard at least 2 or 3 different people's feelings, which there's really nothing I can say there other than I could sit there and be like, well, I've been up for the last few nights, I haven't had a lot of sleep, both of which are true, but, is that really an excuse? I think that the core of this is I was caught up in cognitive dissonance, and I couldn't see it until I saw it, if that makes sense. Now, on the other side of the coin, if you will, it is also true that the same people that were trying to point out to me that I was not making sense were themselves not necessarily using the best word choices. And that might have been in response to the fact that I was using bad word choices. I mean, how can I expect people to do better when I'm not doing any good myself, right? A lot of people did say some rather kind words as they insulted me, if you will, or tried to knock me down a peg, or get me to see the reason, if you will, that they come to me for logic, or they look at me as the most logical person, or something to this effect, and I just don't know how to take that. It's not about me. It's never been, I hope, about me. I want it to be about, does this idea have a logically coherent argument or not? And the whole point of talking points is that it's just pure from my brain ramble, and it's so I can engage in you and you don't have to agree with me on all this. And I've always maintained that as long as you disagree with me in a logically coherent manner, I don't care. Which, since I was in cognitive dissonance and people weren't responding to me in what I felt like was a logical manner, it just set me even further into this sort of tailspin, which isn't their fault. I don't want to blame anyone but my own brain for this. Again, I think that when someone's, especially when somebody you respect or like or what have you, which again, this, to me is weird that people think highly of me. I it's like I want to be super humble, be like, no, not cool, that it really can affect your own response to that person. How can you be saying these things? What are you doing? Instead of responding in a logical, thoughtful manner, like, well, yeah, but that sounds like a conspiracy theory. If somebody had said that, I would have been like, oh, bleep. But we don't, but it's like expecting people to know the magical words to snap you out of something, right? And that's not fair. I mean, we can't expect other people to know what's going to help us to get out of whatever our brain is doing to us. Thankfully, I got out of it. Thankfully, I saw it for what it was. Because I could very well have gotten deeper and deeper into this state of I'm right and this is really how it is. I don't know. That should be the talking point. Nobody knows. We don't know if he's innocent or guilty. We don't know. Who cares? What's interesting is not really necessarily the motives, because we can't figure that out anyways, and just trying to excuse that away and say, well, it's just conjecture. That was bad. That was really bad on my part. And I always feel bad when I screw up, but I don't know, I feel extra bad this time, if that matters at all. And I feel really bad that I've potentially hurt people's feelings. But at any rate, that what's at the core of this that I should have gone after is that we're flipping the script. That if this had been would this have been a story if it was just a white guy, a white kid? I don't know. It's hard to know. It's really hard to know. I should have talked about, is this going to cause other people to bring, clock-ish items or things that they ripped out of a clock and threw in a pencil case to school in hopes that they'll get a scholarship? I mean, is this going to create copycats? Maybe that would have been good to go on and talk about that. But all of that went out the window. All of the possible good stuff I could have talked about regarding this particular story was swept under the rug because I was so focused on figuring out and justifying that my ideas for his motive, which are all irrelevant because I don't know. We can't know his motive. I've said this. I know this. Yet I did it anyways. What the bleep is wrong with me? A person I've been playing Minecraft with named Parkinor, I think is how it's pronounced. I was talking to him about this, and he said something that I thought was interesting, although I don't know how true it is, but I still think it's an interesting idea that reason is different than logic. Reason is what we use or can use just in normal conversation with each other, and reason doesn't exclude emotion, whereas logic does because of the nature of what it is. So seeing that other people, in my view, were getting upset, whether they are or are not getting upset, my perception is they're getting upset. Why? Wait a minute, I need to take a step back. Maybe I said something that didn't irritate them for the reasons I thought or in my thinking. So it's kind of like a triple, quadruple sort of step back where instead of having special knowledge of how that person's feeling, look at myself and say, wait a minute, what is it that I said that makes me think that they're feeling something? Maybe I am wrong. Maybe this is completely off in La La Land. So I do need to incorporate that lesson into my brain as much as I can as I continue my journey of trying to learn how to be a better skeptic. And at the end of the day, we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. And I guess that's part of this journey. And I have to be okay with me making a mistake. With me losing, if you will, to emotion. Can't be an animal and not have emotions. With all that being said, I kind of wonder if talking points is something that should continue on this channel or not. I'm much better doing logical analysis of things or doing just completely crazy things. Doing these sort of in-between zones, it's hit and miss. Sometimes they're fantastic and sometimes they blow up in my face. But I did learn something, so that's good. I just hope that the cost of that learning isn't a few friends or subscribers. But if that is what it is, well, there's nothing I can do about that. So that is all I've got to say. Thank you for listening. And I really need to start working on this tag analysis and get it on YouTube. So That's a whole thing right there. Thanks for listening again. I already said that. Bye.